everyone hear me? Oh, wow, that's really loud.
Yeah.
We got to stand, so good to go. I guess we'll get started. So welcome, everybody, to the last Master of Professional Writing faculty and student reading event of the academic year. Tonight, our special faculty reader is acclaimed author Mark Richard. Yay! As some of you know, I'm Niree, the coordinator of the reading series. I would like to thank Barnes & Noble for their continued support of our program and our events, and Lita and Joy, who help out tonight, as well as Corey, who's filming the evening for the YouTube page, so look out for that in a few weeks. A few reminders before we get started. Silence your cell phones. The restrooms are way back there. Validation for parking is available, I think 3 hours is what it is. And please hang out, have some snacks. The sodas were in the trunk of my car, so be careful when you open them. So the themes this year for our reading series was sins and virtues, and we're going to wrap up with greed and charity. And I've always tried to find these insightful, deep quotes about whatever sin and virtue we're talking about. So tonight I found, if you're not greedy, you will go far. You will live in happiness too, like the Oompa Loompa Doompity-Doo. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first reader for the evening. Carolyn Jones is in her second year in the program. Her guiltiest pleasure is blasting oldies in the car while driving. Carolyn has invented a work-in-progress charity, the Go Literacy Campaign, whose mission it is to use new and traditional media to deliver viable and exciting new educational resources to minors who are incarcerated in juvenile detention centers. You may not know that CJ loves to watch Forensic Files. Ladies and gentlemen, Carolyn Jones.
A slave mother's dying wish was inspired by the life of Sarah Breedlove, 1867 to 1919. Her mother and father were slaves who both died of yellow fever in a Louisiana Delta when Sarah was 7. Using the name Madam C.J. Walker, Sarah became famous for her line of hair products that made her the country's first black female millionaire. This tone poem imagines Sarah's mother on her deathbed, advising her daughter to wash white folks' clothes, to avoid slaving in the tobacco fields that were a breeding ground for yellow fever. A slave mother's dying wish. I quake, soaked through with fever. Hands ache, can't pick tobacco no more. Black blood drip from my nostrils. Can't hold nothing down, can't stop moaning. You got to wash, baby.
Clickety-lack, clackety-click, clickety-clack,
You got to break your back.
Mean old washboard.
Fill up that old tin
Remnant of
tub
my
with
mother.
rainwater.
You laugh while buttons,
River too
eyelets,
muddy to wash
safety pins
white folks' clothes
dig
in.
into my torn knuckles.
Scrub they shirts on a
Clickety-clack,
board.
clackety-click.
Dry they dresses in
That
the
all you
sun.
got to say? You scour
Listen
my
to
soul.
the heartbeat of that
I
old
mock your
washboard.
rigidity. Up and
That
down.
be your soul crying
down
out
and
to
up.
God.
You done forged my
That
spine.
be my tears
Diamond
washing
hard.
away your heartache.
Lickety-lack, lackety-lick.
Burn me up
Stinky old
after I'm
washboard.
gone. Stay out
You
the
buzz
marshes.
louder than them bloated mosquitoes.
Tobacco
Swole
plantation
with yellow
ripe
fever.
with yellow
Skimming
fever.
scum off the fetid sweat of field slaves like Mama, heartless old bastard of a washboard. You scrape my bald-back pride against white folks' clothes. I fester in Mama's tears, scorched yellow with lye soap.
High-heeled shoes and asses on shoulders. A coming-of-age embarrassment. She used to hear the snuff-dipping, tobacco-spitting, chair-rocking old folks say as she stumped up the steps of the rickety back porch of her old tenement house at 2804 A. Shoto Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri. Lord, look at that child walking around here with her ass on her shoulders. She would be mad as fleas on a tick and became angrier at this or that and haughtier and more indignant at people for talking about her in front of her face. A lot of things gave her the behind. Her dress was too ugly. She had to spend all day in church listening to the preacher spew fire and brimstone all over shouting women, sweaty men, and a robed choir. Amen. She had to wash dishes again when it wasn't her turn. She had to light her mother's cigarette, which required a puff, which made her nauseous. Or she had to read 15 books over the summer. Chaucer, Beowulf, Langston Hughes. When all of her friends were having fun chasing each other around the block or roller skating or gorging themselves on hamburgers at Sullivan's. One day she would show these old folks something. She would never sit on back porches or dip snuff or sway back and forth in rickety old, creaky old rocking chairs. She would go to Los Angeles and become a writer. She grew up, stuffed her ass in a suitcase with a few other unmentionables, and drove toward the sun. No more sub-zero weather, no more icicles for eyelashes, no more seasonal flu, no more criticism for having a surly attitude. Kingman, Barstow, San Bernardino. She got her kicks on Route 66. She and her new husband, her marriage had been one of those cheap, quickie City Hall deals, pulled into the Snooty Fox Motel on Western Avenue in the summer of '88 and splashed cold water onto her ego to purge it of the city's unrelenting smog. She blew the Snooty Fox, had kids, got divorced, grabbed the suitcase with her ass in it, and took off fucking men. Deciding to go it alone, she bought 3 pairs of high heels from the shoe outlet, 1 brown, 1 white, and 1 black. They would go with anything. She searched high and low for a job in her new second-hand dress. She would not rest until she found gainful employment. She went to Marina del Rey, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills. An interviewer said she was outclassed. Riding the bus was rough. Passengers fought on the number 4. A woman poked people with a sharp can opener. A bus driver leaked murky water from a dead fish in a plastic bag onto a sleeping kid's backpack. Bus drivers were short-tempered. She had to prevail over the horrors of the job search and remembered her secret weapon, her ass, in a suitcase. She went home, got it out, hoisted it up on her shoulders, and took a temporary bank teller job downtown. The only thing she hated worse than being underdressed in her second-hand skirt and blouse was counting other people's money. She tipped up and down the aisle in her outlet shoes for one thing or another, a caterpillar among butterflies with their snooty attitudes, perfectly coiffed hairdos, pert dresses, crisp blue, I'm headed for the top button-downs, and manicured nails. The women glided around in their expensive high heels while she tipped around in hers. Their lunches were feasts. Hers was peanut butter and jelly. The afternoon wore painfully on, and she realized her shoes hurt her feet. Her head throbbed from the smell of new money. She tipped out of the bathroom at one point and took her seat behind the counter. She was tipping back and forth for one thing or another when a blue button-down said, "Excuse me, you're dragging a trail of toilet paper behind your shoe." She shrank to the size of a peanut. Her whole world imploded into one big thrift shop blurry mess. After removing her ass from her shoulders, she tipped out, caught the bus, and vowed never to return to the aisle on the other side of the bank teller's window with her ass on her shoulders. My soul as a river. Frozen in February, no one can tell where land ends and the river begins. Nothing stirs. An occasional ice flow shatters time's frigid glass. Where do beavers go in brutal cold, and big brown barges and paddle boats heading to the Gulf? lovers who stargaze and dream of each other. A rusted license plate wedged in rock-hard snow warns of spring. Vengeful Tanatia, heaven shining ruby, perfect in the teal sky, close enough to touch. She gathers her children, hides them neath her starry veil, whispers of the summer solstice, floating, powerless, blood red, eternal. Oblivion strains the fabric of my flimsy existence, of the river's ragged eternity. Blanched white in February, a seamless otter swims under the ice, its reflection a constant rip of cracking mirrors. He awaits the March thaw. I rejoice in April rain. I flow, brim with hope, reverberate, quake, when new life buds along the river. The birth of marigolds, fatworms, pesky blue bees, honeysuckle, fireflies, lemons, herons, fishing, buffalo, whiting, carp, bass, thrill, maize, dutiful barges, paddle boats. Water skiers, goggle-trimmed faces aglow, beckon. June, July, August, September's chill. The river stiffens and yawns, undulates in October wind, awestruck by the blazing harvest moon. Winter pours sleet-blackened ice over hard gray cobbled faces, warmed by holiday cheer. Champagne bubbles, tinkling glasses bask near crackling fireplaces. I shudder at the prospect of freezing in February, when no one can tell where land ends and the river of my soul begins, where nothing stirs.
Adam likes to dance in the dark while singing the awe-inspiring music of Justin Bieber. He is a believer. If Adam could invent a charity in his name, it would be for illiterate puppies, because they shouldn't have to get by on cuteness alone. You may not know that Adam is a descendant of George Washington's tailor's third cousin's barber's English teacher's rabbi, Adam Fishboy.
That was all true, all true. So I'm going to read the beginning of my novel that I'm just starting to write, and it's tentatively titled My Impoverished Life. So the first chapter is going to be a little letter, and then I'll start reading the second chapter. So, dear family, you may have noticed that I'm not in the house right now. If you check again tomorrow, I will not be here either. Another week, probably the same thing. Don't be alarmed. I had to leave. I should have done this a while ago. The time has come for me to stop being a miserable, self-absorbed, lazy, pathetic person. I need to start my real life. I need to become something like a real human being. I don't know exactly how I'll do that. I have no plan. I just know that I need to leave, and I'm going to leave, and then what I hope is that I'll figure it all out. You should all know that I'm not doing this because of any of you. Dad, this is not because you fired me. I should never have worked at the company in the first place. I had no interest. You knew it. I knew it. We went through the motions long enough. I don't hate you. I don't hate anybody. Jackson, I'm not jealous of you. You've done well at the company. You've worked hard. You like it. You deserve to be promoted. I'm not a jealous person. I don't want to be like anybody else. I'm stuck being who I am, whatever that is, which is part of what I want to figure out. And Mom, I'm not trying to escape you or anything. You're not a smothering mother, at least not compared to the really smothering mothers. I'm glad you care about me. I'm glad you've done everything in your power to try to make me happy and healthy and comfortable. None of you are the problem. I'm not sure what the problem is, but I know there is one. And I know I must sound like a whining, ungrateful ass to claim that I have problems when I've been given every privilege in the world, but I don't think I'm the problem either. I just know that I'm not happy here. I've tried to go with the flow of it, even though it's never felt quite right. But I can't do that anymore. I don't think my soul, whatever that is, will allow me to just hang around like this any longer. I need a clean break. I need to start over. So please don't try to find me. It's not like you won't ever see me again. I might even be back here in a couple weeks if I come to the conclusion that Beverly Hills is where I belong, that I just haven't been taking advantage of everything that's been given to me. But I need to leave. Even writing this note is making me feel better. I hope the cleaning ladies don't throw it away accidentally. So I guess the only thing left to say is goodbye. P.S. If they do throw it away, then, never mind, Yolanda or Samadhi, if you're reading this first, please hand this note to my parents. Signed, Lyle. So chapter 2. Lyle Grant poured 2 cups of rice into his rust-rimmed pot of boiling water. He stirred with his yellow plastic spoon, turned the gas down to low, set the cover atop the pot, and wiped some grains off the counter. The light above him flickered as he sat down in his green-upholstered chair and scooted toward his grease-stained kitchen table. The chair and the table he'd bought at the thrift store on the corner of Olympic and Alvarado, spent $15 on them both combined, then carried each in separate trips, the chair, heavy, durable, maybe World War II era, over his head, the table, lightweight, asymmetrical, the miscarriage of a drunken craftsman out in front of his hips, sidestepping through the crowd on Alvarado, passing the bright erupting storefronts, the flocks of pigeons landing at MacArthur Park, the wafts of meat and tortillas cooking on shopping cart grills manned by the tiniest Hispanic women. Lyle leaned back in his chair, shirtless, a bead of sweat dripping down his chest, his long uncombed hair hanging past his shoulders, and looked up as the light above him flashed and jerked from yellow to orange to nothing. He squinted up at the gray light fixture. He did not profess profound annoyance at this inconvenience or call someone to fix it. Instead, he squeaked the chair back along the linoleum kitchen floor and stepped atop the seat. He ducked under the ceiling, brushed his hair out of his eyes, then twisted out the light bulb. He shook it, heard something jangle inside, figured this meant it needed to be replaced. So he set the burnt-out light bulb on his table and waited for the rice to finish cooking. To pass the time, he looked through the almost decipherable Spanish-language newspaper he'd picked up from below his apartment building's mailboxes, tried to imagine a Spanish-speaking person doing the same thing with the LA Times. When the rice was plump and rich and coconut white, he turned off the burner and put on his gray t-shirt, Ralph Lauren but now stained at the pits. Then he walked to the 99-cent store a couple blocks from his apartment. Small tasks like this had filled his time since he'd arrived a month ago from a public bus he'd boarded 10 miles away in Beverly Hills with a suitcase but no plan, and headed east in a hard plastic seat surrounded by Los Angeles' underclass. When the bus stopped at Wilshire and Alvarado, he stepped out of its exhaling doors, struck by the lanes of bustling brown people, the enormous lake across the street, the swarms of black-eyed birds. This was the beating center of life, he felt, and decided that this was where he needed to start anew. Now, a new light bulb in hand, along with a new tube of toothpaste, Lyle was turning the corner onto 8th towards his apartment when he heard someone calling out to him by the bus stop. The person pushed off a tall fence surrounding a litter-filled grass lot. He had black-rimmed glasses, long jean shorts, bulky ankles. It was Raul. Lyle had met Raul a couple of weeks ago at a street carnival on Hoover. Lyle was walking around the carnival alone, enjoying the aura of cheap food and laughing children, but feeling a little out of place when he smelled some weed, an opportunity for friendship. Lyle followed the smell around a couple of rides through rows of carnival games until he came upon the smoldering joint held by Raul below the Ferris wheel. They talked a little about the Dodgers and the hangover medicating effect of Fatburger, and Lyle ended up buying a couple joints from him. They bumped into each other a couple times around the streets after that. Raul was a friendly guy, the only person in the neighborhood Lyle knew by name except for his purple-haired apartment manager, Angelita. "How you doing, man?" Raul said, and slapped Lyle's hand as behind them the bus drove away. Raul scratched at the collar of his Subway emblazoned green polo. He was probably going to work. Lyle asked him if he needed to catch that bus. "Nah, fuck it, no rush," he said. Lyle smiled. Raul knew how to enjoy life, knew what was important. He probably laughed at the rich people in Gucci sunglasses who wandered into his Subway, desperately hungry but still grimacing at the listing of each sandwich's caloric content. If Lyle had a choice, he would have preferred to be born and raised like Raul, untroubled, unspoiled, without the need for success or ambition. Lyle wiped some hair off his forehead and asked Raul if he wanted to go to his place and smoke a little. He still had one of the joints he'd bought from him. As they walked, Raul told him about his boss yelling at him for going to the bathroom too often, about the way she ate leftover lettuce in the back room. "The bitch is crazy," Raul said. Lyle concurred, opened the gate of his apartment complex. not really a complex or a building, but a set of studio apartments connected in groups of fours like miniaturized townhouses, each encircled by yards of grass. When Lyle first arrived off the bus and decided to stay, he'd expected to come upon apartment buildings with only concrete walls and sourdough stucco, but instead he discovered this complex with its grass lawns, calm and fertile, so he signed a lease and concluded he shouldn't assume anything anymore. He closed the gate behind Raul, kicked a runaway soccer ball towards a couple of kids on the lawn. "So why aren't you at work or something?" Raul asked him as Lyle unlocked his door, revealed his bare white studio. "I don't have a job," Lyle told him. Raul looked around at the walls, laughed, but still living like a white king. Lyle looked down at the balding carpet, embarrassed. It hadn't occurred to him how ridiculous it might seem for him to be living here alone, not even working, when some of the apartments in the complex were home to families of multiple generations. But then Raul slapped his shoulder. "Just kidding, man," he said. "It's a piece of shit, but still better than my place." Lyle picked up his sheets from the floor, threw them onto his mattress. He grabbed the joint out of one of the many drawers in the kitchen, so many drawers. The apartment really was designed for a poor family, not a single white guy. Enough cabinet space for a dozen people. Lyle felt like apologizing to Raul, even though he'd said he was kidding, but then Raul laughed again. So they sat on the mattress, equals, a few inches from the floor, and smoked the finely rolled joint. Raul played with the shoelaces as he puffed, told Lyle about the corn maze-like design shaved into the pubic hair of the girl he was banging. "She won't tell me what the fuck it means," he said. Lyle laughed, told him about a girl he'd once slept with who had a tattoo of a peace sign right where her blonde bush should have been. He was going to tell him about other crazy girls he'd intimately engaged with, but he held back, worried that he might identify himself as a former attendee of Hollywood clubs, consumer of Rodeo Drive luxuries, princeling of the West Side. When the joint was almost done, Lyle offered Raul some rice and beans, but he declined, said he'd better get to work before they fired his ass. He took a last puff, then they slapped hands and Lyle let him out. When Lyle sat back in his chair, he felt, for the first time since he'd been here, lonely, bored. He ate some rice and beans, but the food didn't produce a reflective calm like usual. He could feel the emptiness of his apartment. He could sense the strangeness of his living here. He'd hardly talked to another human being the whole month. This had allowed him to live in a bubble, more of a tourist than part of this new world, free of the pressures that define life in this community. Not hungry anymore, he moved from the chair to his bed and curled up, gripping his arm between his knees. Really, if he wanted to keep living here, he needed to integrate into the community. What was the point of escaping Beverly Hills if he was just going to live here like a monk? It was going to take work to start a new life, become a better person. He remembered the light bulb on the table. He forced himself out of bed, shuffled along the carpet, leaned his elbows on the table, and ripped the bulb out of the cardboard. Then he dragged the chair under the empty fixture. As he twisted in the light bulb, his arm and neck pulsing, he considered the long road ahead and suddenly became too exhausted to even give the bulb one last turn. He stepped off the chair, dropped into bed, and instead of preparing for the future, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Adam. Lauren Signorino is in her second year screenwriting concentration. Her guiltiest pleasure is fan videos from her favorite TV shows. If Lauren could invent a charity, it would be for bunnies and moon bears because they are adorable and deserve happy lives. You may not know that Lauren makes jewelry, such as the earrings I'm modeling tonight. Lauren Signorino.
I'm reading this story tonight for my parents because it's their favorite, and they are wonderful. Lewis Miller was known around the neighborhood as a bum, tramp, vagrant, hobo, vagabond, and homeless person for the more politically correct people. You could usually find him shuffling along the streets in his stained trench coat and red checkered moccasins that were so worn his rather large toes protruded from the mangled fabric. As Lewis ambled along the streets, he mumbled to himself while he picked up imaginary trash. His goal was to make the city a more beautiful place at the suggestion of his friend Hempel. Most people thought Lewis was just another bum rambling to himself, but that was not the case. Lewis spoke with a small, troll-type creature that lived inside his belly button, named Hempel. He had met Hempel 3 years prior when he awoke one morning to a strange yet subtle whisper. Lewis did his best to ignore the tiny voice, but with time, it took a toll on him, and he began to embrace his bossy companion. Although Lewis had tried many times to get a good look at Hempel, all he could discern was his burnt orange skin, microscopic kilt, fat belly, and hair made of flames. Ages ago, Lewis lived in a stately home with many amenities, but hard times and Hempel made his former life nothing but a distant daydream. Lewis now lived under the bridge on 43rd Street. Under that bridge, he kept his sparse possessions, which included a few cans of soup, a dingy blanket, a shopping cart, a bottle of cheap vodka, and a notepad where he wrote down all the wise things Hempel told him. Sometimes Lewis would wonder if that stately house with the manicured lawn and blue shutters ever actually existed. Unfortunately, Lewis could tell you more about Hempel's past than his own. Hempel nearly never shut up about his homeland of Disasterlell, where all belly-button trolls originate. Hempel believed that Lewis's life would be best spent beautifying the city and carrying out his benevolent plans. Lewis longed for the day when he would be recognized by the city and given an award. Hempel assured him that day would come. Whenever Lewis was given spare change, Hempel would insist that he promptly donate it to a homeless shelter. Lewis hated giving away the change he begged for, but he knew it was all part of Hempel's plan. On the auspicious last day of the city beautification process, Lewis was roused awake by Hempel jumping up and down in his belly button. Lewis couldn't tell if the pain in his stomach came from his empty belly or Hempel's tiny feet stomping on him. Hempel informed him that he would be executing the final step of the city beautification process. The shiny award Lewis imagined so many times before was in the forefront of his mind. The sun seemed to be closer to the earth than usual on that day, which made the city swelter. Lewis shed his trench coat and took to the streets in his piss-stained T-shirt. Hempel was more than demanding than usual, and when Lewis told him to chill out, he became even more distempered. At precisely 11:50, you must be waiting 100 yards in front of the 3rd Street bus stop. Get moving, you smelly human, or you'll be late, Hempel shouted. Lewis stammered back, but I don't have any money for the bus. I'm aware. I'll explain the rest of the plan when we arrive. Lewis sprinted to the bus stop with minutes to spare. Even though Hempel was berating him the entire way, all he heard was the applause from the crowd after he received his glorious award. Now for the rest of the plan, Hempel declared. Will I be getting my award after this part of the plan? Lewis interjected. How many times do I have to tell you not to interrupt me? Sorry, Hempel, Lewis replied in a morose mumble. Okay, so where was I? Oh yes, the 12 o'clock bus. You will wait for the bus, and when it is 100 yards away, you will jump in front of it. I can't do that. The bus will kill me, and then I'll never finish the city beautification process and be given my award. Do as I say, you filthy oaf. I'm looking out for us. Don't you worry. I have a plan, Hempel said as he twiddled his tiny thumbs. For the first time, Lewis was scared for his life, and the beads of sweat running down his face hid his tears. Lewis knew he had to obey Hempel. After all, he knew what was best. As the bus approached, Hempel continued to ramble about how Lewis was going to change lives with his act of self-sacrifice. When the bus was just inches away, Lewis hesitated for half a second, but Hempel's screams to jump were so loud he couldn't take it. Lewis threw himself in front of the speeding bus. The monstrous force of the bus broke his neck. Everyone aboard evacuated and stood on the sidewalk, gawking in horror at his twisted body. After all the people were off the bus, the bomb located in the last seat on the left ticked its final second and exploded. The only person whose life was lost was Lewis Miller, who courageously and unwittingly sacrificed himself to save the citizens aboard. In the last milliseconds of Lewis's life, he no longer heard Hempel ordering him around. For the first time in many years, Lewis's thoughts were clear, and he passed peacefully and without pain.
Thank you, Lauren. Gisela Rodriguez is in her second year nonfiction concentration. Her guiltiest pleasure is staying up late watching reality TV shows on the Bravo network with a pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream in hand. Giselle would invent a charity called Get It Straight to provide both Western and Eastern healing for individuals suffering from scoliosis. You may not know that Giselle is afraid of swimming in pools by herself and terrified of going out too far into the ocean. This is all Spielberg's fault. She has not been the same since seeing Jaws. Giselle Rodriguez.
Hi. This is a piece I wrote this year in memoir class off of an exercise we had to do. So I would like to thank Dinah and my classmates who were incredibly generous and really helped me put this together. The piece is titled Uneducated Me. I know the names of all the disciples in order of importance. I know the act of contrition backwards before I can recite the alphabet correctly. Impending doom for my sins is of concern. I ponder how God will greet me in heaven knowing the bad things I do in private. I am in kindergarten. My classmates and I are told there's a spanking machine in the principal's office. We are terrified, though it's never used on anyone. It's the photocopy machine. But we don't know this until we're old enough to start making ditto duplicates for our teachers. First grade sucks. One day I pee at my desk because Mrs. Nicoledge doesn't believe I have to use the bathroom. I wouldn't believe me either. She has caught me sitting on the toilet biting my nails in the past. More than once I've requested a lavatory break, but what I really needed was a break from class. However, this time I really did have to go. I can't hold it any longer. I try, but the pain becomes unbearable. The warm trickle soaks my polyester plaid skirt and drips down the brown rusted metal of my seat. I am forced to move my desk into the hallway and sit there for the rest of the afternoon. I missed the lesson on long addition and subtraction. Sitting there, facing that closed classroom door, I decide I'll blame Mrs. Nicoledge for every time I'll have to use my fingers or a calculator to count. When Mrs. R.C., my third grade teacher, tells Abuela, my grandmother, I don't know the difference between dimes and nickels, Abuela tapes one of each to my desk at home. This completely grosses me out. I have OCD and am skeeved by coins because they're dirty to me. But there they are, a penny, a nickel, a dime, and a quarter under layers of clear matte Scotch tape. Weeks go by and Abuela keeps asking me if school is getting easier. I lie to her. And eventually the coins go back into my piggy bank. It doesn't occur to her I wouldn't tell her the truth, because she really does believe in me. At some point, I forget what grade, I have a nun for a teacher, Sister Marianne. I like her the least. She is mostly mean and gets mad at me for silly things. She frowns upon my mother, who is an actress. When rumors start to leak my mom is topless in a film, Sister Marianne has no qualms of expressing her opinions on the matter to me. During recess one day, I trip and land headfirst on the concrete, my skirt uniform up over my belly. She watches it happen, knows it's an accident, but still uses the moment to say, "Don't be a floozy like your mother. Pull your skirt down." I don't defend myself or my mom. The slow learners, as our principal calls them, go to a trailer in the parking lot for extra help. This makes me jealous. I want to leave the classroom too. The next time the national placement exams are given, I purposely fail and become the newest member of the trailer park kids. I love my time in the annex. Our teacher is soft-spoken, wears pastels, and she smells like fresh, warm towels. When we answer correctly, she claps and gives us lollipops. I love the lollipops. My favorite is the cotton candy flavor that turns my tongue periwinkle. I always know the answer. I always get the lollipop. I forget to be discreet. The attention is bliss, but it only lasts 3 weeks until she realizes I'm smarter than I let on. 6th grade. Doctors discover I have severe scoliosis. I am forced to wear a plastic brace that covers my entire torso. Ridicule ensues. And there's Mrs. Lubeck. Not a nun, but she is a petite, round Polish woman who walks the halls like a pig searching for truffle. She teaches us nothing in the 6th grade, though she often expresses a sincere love for tall glasses of milk with ice cubes, not crushed. The entire year goes by and she doesn't bother to learn my name. I am addressed as young lady. Just to spite her, I never try the milk drink, though she does make it sound enticing and delicious. Abuelo, my grandfather, dies as suddenly as I read these words. I've been living with him and Abuela. She and I move into a one-room studio. Every night she cries herself to sleep, and once her gentle snoring kicks in, I start up. We are living in a melodramatic soap opera, though neither one of us is aware of it. I'm 11 and have 2 years until graduation. I hate school, but I hate coming home even more. During 7th and 8th grade, my class and I are particularly rambunctious and drive 3 teachers to madness. The first of this trio is Mrs. Caius, and her idea of punishment is to give us the silent treatment. If we get sassy beyond her control, she just sits at her desk and lets us do as we please. At the time, my classmates and I think we're lucky. In retrospect, that bitch kept me from learning. What sort of education does one acquire the first semester of 7th grade? I don't know. Mrs. Nisler is more resilient. She keeps her patience until 3 boys shatter her windshield with a car battery during parent-teacher night. 8th grade rolls in, and we're introduced to Miss Myers. More than once, I try to make her smile with a joke or a kind comment, but she never does. She never takes to me. We don't share any special moments together. I'm not sad to see her go when she decides to quit. Summer before freshman year of high school, I moved to a new town and in with my dad. My scoliosis has worsened, the back brace gets bigger and harder to hide. I am the new chick, and other students are not welcoming. The girls throw dirty socks at me in the changing room after gym. My locker is broken into and filled with moldy fruit and garbage. I'm judged for my disability and the peach fuzz on my face and arms. I want to bitch slap every single one of them. I want to whip them with nasty words. I want to be like the Karate Kid. But instead, I eat lunch in the bathroom stalls and miss class to avoid walking past tormentors. I'm a coward. I come home crying to my father, but he doesn't believe it's that bad. See, we don't know one another. We haven't for a while. How can he, a 33-year-old man, know how to deal with the coming of age of a 13-year-old stranger? When my depression becomes unbearable, my mom drives 2 hours from Manhattan to South Bumfuck, Jersey every weekend to pick me up. She's my saving grace. I tag along to her rehearsals and performances. Backstage becomes my favorite place. I decide, fuck school. I stop doing homework and paying attention in class. I'm going to be an actress, and you don't need an education for that, I concur with myself. My ego and swag begin to form, and I fancy myself sophisticated for a teenage Jersey girl because I know my way around Hell's Kitchen and have seen 2 ladies make out on stage. Back at home, my dad doesn't know what to do with me. The last resort, he and my mom decide to send me to live with her parents. Their home is in my old neighborhood. Perhaps I'll fit in back there. At this point, my life is a crapshoot. Let's see what sticks. I'm a sophomore now. At my new high school, the rebellion against my studies continues. I sit in the back of the classroom checking my makeup and daydreaming. Homework is ignored, proofreading disregarded, and on 2 separate occasions when I've missed assignments, I tell the teachers it's because I'm in a dark hole and contemplating suicide. I use the same sob story for both teachers, but they don't know each other. They can't connect the lies. The night before my SATs, I get wrecked off strawberry boons and blunts. I only remember the exam because my friend calls to remind me. I'm already out partying and don't see the point in stressing about it. I don't prep and I don't care. I skip an entire portion in the verbal section because it doesn't seem interesting enough for me to take the time to read it. Overall, my score is atrocious, but I still managed to come out above average in the verbal. However, I am an apparent idiot at math. I think back to Mrs. Nicoledge in the 1st grade. Every report card, every note sent home goes a little something like this. Giselle is a bright girl, but she doesn't work to potential. Junior year, my history teacher decides to gamble on this so-called potential. He recommends me for history honors for the following semester. I participate in my first AP class senior year, still refusing to study. When final grades come in, I have received the lowest in the class, a B+. I graduate high school with 2nd honors. A prominent university accepts me, but I'm pissed I didn't get into their theater program. Instead, I choose a small state college. It's closer to my mother, who's living in Manhattan. but she ends up moving to Los Angeles a month after I start classes. I receive a care package from her, a bucket of sweets. I eat it all in one sitting and smoke a joint to relieve the bellyache. I keep smoking all day, every day, almost failing out of school. I believe the correct term for my behavior is self-sabotaging, though I don't see it then. The weed makes me numb, and numb works in my favor. This indulgent, pot-smoking, gluttonous behavior continues until one day my father, we rarely speak to each other, says to me, "You're getting fat. Stop smoking marijuana." I don't know how he knows, but the thought of my secret exposed scares me straight, literally. Declarative sentences, pronouns, conjunctions, and superlatives, I don't know how to distinguish one from the other offhand. My knowledge is limited to subject and verb with an adjective or adverb sprinkled in on occasion. However, I can write pretty cool creative papers if necessary, because I do kind of get it. Writing is a rhythm. It's the only way I can explain it. I don't understand why something works. I either hear the beat or I don't. For some teachers, this is enough. Other teachers aren't impressed. I graduate college with a 3.9 GPA. My 20s go up in a puff of smoke. Whoops. Something has to change. I don't love acting anymore. Not sure I ever did. I don't love life anymore, though at some point I know I did. I love writing. I've given up my drug addiction. I need a replacement. Maybe graduate school? Everyone else is doing it. A week before my 29th birthday, I learned I had been accepted into a prestigious writing program. Applying is the only thing I've ever done for myself, not because I think it might make someone else happy. After I opened my acceptance letter, I cried to the point of hyperventilation. I'm in the living room with my dog, and he runs over to me and jumps to grab the letter out of my hands. Does he think the paper's hurting me? He accidentally knocks me down and begins to lick my face, something I never let him do. But this time it's okay. We're having a moment, and things are about to change. And that's the reality. My classmates hail from the nation's finest universities, some I've never heard of because, simply put, I just don't know. I'm terrified someone is going to catch on to how unprepared, intimidated, and uneducated I am. It's daunting, frightening. It's a constant struggle to prove my worth. But I remind myself, fake it till you make it. Until one day I discover I'm not faking it anymore.
Thank you, Giselle. That concludes our student readers of the evening, so a big round of applause for all of them. All right, and now for our faculty reader. Mark Richard is the author of 2 award-winning short story collections, The Ice at the Bottom of the World and Charity, and a best-selling novel, Fishboy. His 4th book, House of Prayer No. 2, was published this year by Nan A. Talese Doubleday and appeared on the Southern Independent Booksellers bestseller list. His short stories have appeared in The New Yorker, Harper's, Esquire, GQ, The Paris Review, The Oxford American, Grand Street, Shenandoah, The Quarterly, Equator, and Antaeus. Am I missing anything? He is the recipient of the Ernest Hemingway Foundation Award, a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, a Whiting Foundation's Writers Award, a New York Foundation for the Arts Fellowship, and a National Magazine Award for Fiction. His journalism has appeared in the New York Times, Harper's, Spin, Esquire, George, Detour, Vogue, and the Oxford American, and he has been a correspondent for the BBC. Richard also wrote the screenplay Stop Loss, produced by Paramount, and has been a writer-producer for CBS's Criminal Minds, Suspect Behavior, Showtime's Emmy-winning series Huff, CBS's Chicago Hope, and Fox's Party of Five. He is currently writer-producer for Hell on Wheels, a new dramatic series for AMC, which he keeps ruining things for in class. Mark's guilty as pleasure is sleeping on the beach wrapped in an old blanket. If Mark could invent a charity, it would be to provide books, paper, and pencils for kids. You may not know that Mark was enrolled in an Episcopal seminary twice. Mark Richard.
Thank you, Niree. You know, it's just great to hear all this talent that we have at USC. And you should feel real good, Bridget. I mean, several of these students have been students of mine. And where's Lauren? Lauren, I'm glad you didn't take my advice about skipping the fantasy and, you know, getting into the real stuff. Are your parents really here? Yeah. Where are they? Bravo, bravo. You know, we think a lot of your daughter. And, you know, Adam, you're on fire. And Giselle, I know you had the seeds of that. Where are you? There. You know, when last summer you were struggling with that story, and you finally got traction. Maybe it was the rhythm. I don't know. You've done really well. You know, I'm just really happy. There's such a abundance of talent that has come through here. I'm going to read a really short story from the book Charity, because I thought the topic was charity tonight, and it's just coincidental, I guess. Sorry, I'm kind of messed up. And I'm blind, and I'm deaf. This is a story that it's a strange little story. I haven't read it in years, so it's nice that I'm pulling it out and look at it. I've gotten a couple of questions from students asking me. They go, "I like this story. What does it mean?" And I don't know either. So if we're a little confused at the end, know that the author is confused as well. But you know, like you said, Giselle, I kind of heard something when I started working on it. So I just started writing it. I'm sorry, I've got a little bit of a cold. This is called Charity. There was no railing on the bridge, just a timber-high tire guard. The sedan rode the bridge for an instant, then rolled to rest in the mud below. Undiscovered until dawn, the child broken, the woman dead. The child waited the charity ward calendar for someone to claim him, his legs in plaster and braced to his neck. Babble and drool and suppers of boiled oats and soft eggs was cleft palate week. Blind month was like a party game, uncertain hands shaking the child awake as they groped the side rails of his bed, trying to find their own. The child waited splayed hip month, faceless weekend, the undescended testicle day. Burn month was in summer, children tearing a favorite toy apart and thrashing it to the floor, nuns in the midst of the screaming, first with ointment and ice, then syringes. Even injected, the thrashing and the noises, something like flesh on flesh in the beds, bright reds and whites. The child made friends with the boy with a tail. The boy stole small things from the covers of the coma children for them to play with. The doctors were going to cut off the boy's tail, the boy said, and when he asked, the nuns told him it would be buried in a cemetery by a priest. When the boy asked if he would be permitted to attend the funeral, the nuns had said no, that his soul was not in his tail. Then I'm going to run away, confided the boy to the broken child, the tail twitching the pants leg it was tucked into. When it came time for the boy with the tail, they caught him by surprise. The nuns lifted him from his breakfast tray and fastened him into a gown. The broken child waved as they pushed him past on the table with wheels. Later, the boy came back with his tail. What he was missing in his bed were his legs. You told them, the boy accused the broken child. I am going to kill you, the boy said, his tail still swimming its nervous search of the empty sheets. I am getting better, the boy with the tail told the broken child in recovery row. You'd better not sleep at night. At night, the child watched the boy with the tail's bed. At the doorway to the ward, a nun snored across an open book, a flashlight, and a teacup in the blue gloom. The child watched an arm rise up quickly and throw from the covers across the way, and then he would feel the scramble of a roach on his face. Hundreds the size of fingers lived in the bedside urinals. The broken child would try to catch the roach before it crawled down into his plaster and nested. Catch, a quick rise and whisper, catch, until a sweep of flashlight made them still. Brain Muff, the boy with the tail, ate from the trays around him. I am getting strong, whispered the boy with the tail. I eat everything to make me strong. You better be strong, he told the broken child. You better say your prayers to meet Jesus. Around them, brainless arms waved hello and goodbye. The holiday Christmas was in reformatory month. Hourly bed checks at night and stolen clothing. Fistfights in the showers and worse. A fire in the laundry. A nun nearly blinded with a fork. They all loved the boy's tale. They leaned on his bed rails, farmers along the fence, and felt it. I paid them money to kill you for me, the boy with the tail told the broken child. They are going to get you at night, you snitch, and strangle you and kill you. You don't have any money, said the broken child, and the boy with the tail opened a fist and showed him a penny. The missionaries came at Christmas with oranges and little plastic crosses for the children to play with. They gave the broken child an extra orange because the boy with the tail had told them confidentially that the child was not expected to live long. Out the door, I'll run away through the trees. No one will ever catch me, and no one will ever care about you. The broken child begged the nuns to find his mother. She's with Jesus, they kept telling him. The nuns had called the army and found a father for the child. The father raked parade ground pebbles all day, his mind dimmed by artillery. Call someplace else, the army had told the nuns, and had hung up the call. One night there was noise. The boy with the tail was on the floor. He fell out of bed, the nun told the broken child. I was coming for you, said the boy with the tail to the child. When they cut the child out of his plaster, it was extra limb month. There were visitors. When they cut the broken child out of his plaster, they discovered that his legs had become stiff sticks of long black hair. Interesting, said the visitors before they looked at the boy with the tail. They made a little cart on casters so the broken child could push himself along the halls and wait. He would roll to the top of the long hall to Charity Ward. When he would see the truck with the trays of food coming, he would roll down the hall singing, "Tray truck, tray truck." He was no longer frightened of the boy with the tail. The boy with the tail had left with the visitors. With the money the visitors gave to the nuns bought a grandfather clock. It stands alone in the long hallway down to Charity Ward. To this day, it keeps perfect time. Thank you. Niree?
Thank you, Mark. So I did, in fact, find a quote that was kind of appropriate. Democritus said that it is greed to, I don't know. It is greed to do all the talking, but not to want to listen at all. And I thought that was kind of a good thing in terms of this reading series and having all of you guys come out and listen and give us your time. Give all the student readers who are testing out their stuff and our faculty members your time and just listening. It really helps a lot. So thank you to everybody thank you to everybody who came. Thank you to all the readers. Thank you to all the faculty that are always here supporting us, Bridget Prince, Dana, Tim, I see you, Mark, you're here. And thanks to all the staff of Barnes & Noble's, Lita and Joy, who helped put on the event tonight. Thank you to Corey again for recording this event. And congratulations to all the graduating students. Looking forward to your reading, and have a great summer, everyone. Thank you.